Welcome to the Meeple Syrup Show, designers discussing design. We're on episode 76, 2 plus 2 equals score. That's right, but we're bringing even more than 2 plus 2. We're bringing 5 to the show today. We have not only myself and always the masterful Sen Fung Lim, but as a guest third host. His name is blank on the screen, but he's not a mystery man. That's Hack Oddwelder.
Hack Oddwelder. That's funny.
How you doing, man?
Good. How you doing?
I am excellent. And Sen, what have you been playing lately? What games you been up to? Oh, he says 1 minute. And that, you know what? I'm going to use this 1 minute for a very special announcement. It happens to be a pretty important day for Hack. He released, I believe this is his 5th Kickstarter. Tell us a little quick snippet about what your Kickstarter is, and why is this one different from the others?
Well,
so
this
tell
one...
Tell everyone what it is, and then...
It's called Glass Face, and it's like a speed dice game, where you're basically rolling dice to steal the cards from the middle and then doing set collecting. And it's different because I designed the game with cards, with numbered cards and dice, and I wanted to involve the backers, so I ended up having the idea to have people's faces on the cards like they're trapped inside.
I love it. It's a nice, unique feel where he's actually making a Kickstarter where if you want to, you can be in the game. That's right. Sen's pulling up on the screen right now. It just started. There's 32 days to go. We got 15 backers so far, but don't be shy, and you might notice a couple, well, 3 faces, 4 really. I mean, really 5, 5 faces that are hosts of this show in one way or another. I mean, Hack's out there right now. Sen and I are on the prototype as well. You should recognize Bearded Meeple. That's right, Tyler Anderson, a regular host. And then there's also JR, the co-host, one of the hosts of Nerd Nighters. You should also notice another host of the Nerd Nighters, Stephanie Straw. And if you want to know who the other 2, we got the one tar, Tiffany Ralph, and we got Shmoo, who's a publisher of many great games, and you should know him. So
Shmoo's in Taiwan. He's the main guy in Taiwan.
The main man. He is Mr. Taiwan himself. So, and you'll also notice, because it's St. Patty's coming up, that there's actually a little St. Patty's Lucky Me sponsor level. So what's included in the Kickstarter if people order by now?
Well, I made a little Lucky Leprechaun drinking game. It's like a little micro game where you just have one card and everybody has the same card and you're like flipping pennies. And if you back by St. Patrick's Day, you get that one. And if you don't, you get the unlucky one, which is it's a game. It's a different game. It's still a drinking game, but it's you're predicting flipping coins. And
nice.
So the unlucky one is the one who gets the drink. So it's
now just to clarify, is that after St. Patrick's Day Taiwan time or North America time?
I always do this the last possible place that it's St. Patrick's Day.
Nice.
We always run into this issue for
so people still have time.
Oh yeah, another probably almost 2 days because wherever the last possible place is.
Where the last St. Patty's drink is drank.
Yeah, the very last.
Okay.
We do that with the design contest too. Like you have until the 31st, but the very last place, it's the 31st. You know.
Absolutely. Now, Sen, we have you back. Your audio is here. What games have you been playing up lately? Or you also have some big news. A press release that just came out.
Godfather. So. Some of you might notice that there are a couple Godfathers that were announced today. One of them is our good friend Eric Lang's game coming out through Cool Mini or Not, so it'll have some nice miniatures, of course. COMN style. It's a worker placement game with a little bit of fun in terms of hiding money in briefcases. It was codenamed Briefcase for a long time. So Eric let me play it at the Meeple Syrup Winter Camp, and it's pretty cool. And then Jay and I have a game coming out from IDW, which is a dice rolling area control game. Jay and I love area control, obviously Belfort and whatnot. But now it's with dice. It's not Belfort dice. That's a different game. But this is using your dice to take over areas of New York, just like the mafioso did way back when, and they used dice. But then you can also send your men out to places like Las Vegas. In the movie, they had to go to Las Vegas, and that's where you can get more funds to get more dice, etc., etc. And yeah, so you also have to, obviously, there's parts of the game where you're making offers that can't be refused. Same thing in Eric's game, there's offers you can't refuse and whatnot. So we all had a good time working for different companies, which is interesting, and how they licensed that up. But they're both really cool games, both kind of hitting a different demographic. Our game will be more likely a lower price point versus miniatures and stuff like that, and we'll be playing 3 to 6 players in probably a shorter amount of time, in terms of like 45 to an hour. And then Eric's game is, I can't remember how many people can play it, maybe 5 if I'm not mistaken, but maybe more, I don't know. And it will be more of the 60 to 90 minute style game. So anyways, yeah, that's coming out, and look at that, take a look at that, take a look at Eric's games as well. He has a couple that were announced at Gamma, and then we should have some more stuff announced over Gamma over the next while. But yeah, so that's what we've been working on.
What was the other Eric Lang announcement?
Oh, Munchkin.
Oh, yeah.
Munchkin, the trading card game.
I knew about that.
Like, literally in booster random decks kind of thing. So, yeah, interesting way to go for Steve Jackson Games. And Eric and Kevin actually did that. Kevin Wilson.
Yep.
What is Munchkin?
Sorry?
I'm joking. What is Munchkin, I said.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's Munchkin.
Munchkin.
So I've been working on that. I've been working on... Burning Rubber came back from Chris at Dice Hate Me, said, it's interesting, not sure where it goes, here's some feedback. So Scott and I have been working on getting it to the place where we like it now.
Cool.
In terms of some more cleaner scoring mechanics, taking out a lot of the in-between stuff.
Nice.
And getting it ready to show again. So Scott Gata from Renegade's interested in it. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Might show it to Chris again. He's just busy with other stuff. And then there's a couple other games. Jesse and I are obviously working on some stuff for IDW as well. So
cool.
Lots and lots of stuff. Oh, and for those of you who haven't picked up, but wait, there's more. Chances are you can't anymore because it's pretty much sold out. So if you see a copy, grab it. But we're actually working on the second edition, and the second edition of Wait, There's More will be entirely new words, entirely new features. So if you have version 1 already and really like it, you can mash version 2 with it and make a totally combine the games. They're both standalone but can be combined together, so that's kind of fun. Daryl, how about you? What have you been working on? I saw Passenger Pigeon Project, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's been a fun few days. I actually the weekend I had a bunch of play testing and development. Then actually all of yesterday, from the morning to the late night, Steven Sauer and I met together and we did design, development.
They ate a lot of pie.
We ate a lot of pie.
A day late.
We missed Pie Day, but like out of grieving Pie Day, we thought we should have pie. And actually, we're really excited. We have a couple games that we designed that now we did the first 80%, and we got a lot of work to go to finish that 20%. But we're really happy with a couple games. One what we actually had been working on a lot, Shields, and it would grow and die and grow and die. It was one of those things where, like, in the morning I hated it, and by the evening I loved it.
Oh yes, I saw the pictures of that. And it looks cool. I like the spiky counter thing. I don't know what it is, but I like the look of it.
So yeah, so the Shields we're really psyched about, and then we also have one, Tower of London, that we're really pumped about, and then we did a bunch of play testing. I got to play test Alpha Gems, which is a family game that I'm helping develop. That got to play test with a bunch of different GAC people. Actually, it felt like an official GAC meeting. I think we probably had 9 GAC people in attendance.
So 9 Game Artisans of Canada.
Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
that was pretty awesome. And then all of today, basically, by the time I woke up, rolled out of bed, Adrian was at my door, and we designed all today, and then I kicked him out for dinner, had a quick nap, and then we're on the show now. So we've been working on a few of our designs, a Western kind of party shoot 'em up strategy game, kind of a la Cash and Guns, but set in the Western world. And then Pigeon Post, which I jokingly posted as a wink to my friend JF, who is with Z-Man, who said that he's never experienced a game that made him more angry and felt like the game sucked so much. And so I jokingly said that he had to check it out again, but I don't know if he would ever do that because he hates the game so much. But honestly, it's really funny because we really developed it a lot and took a lot of people's feedback in mind. Some people loved it, some people hated it, and we just took it all. And I feel like a year later, it's so much better. And that's the beauty of why you keep working on games is you take everyone's feedback, even when you think it's a good place, and with more time, it just hopefully keeps getting better. So
yeah, that's what I love about the iterative game process.
Yeah, it was a really cool feeling. Yeah, it was very cool to think over the long period, the ups and downs. So.
Yeah. So speaking of game designers, we have a couple here with us. We have Mr. Matt Loomis, Mr. Top of Deck, and we have Isaac Shalev, and they are wonderful, wonderful game designers. They have a game currently on Kickstarter.
A couple of my favorite designers.
Yeah. Called Retreat to Darkmoor, and Isaac just had his first solo release, I believe. So we're going to bring them on to the show. Today's topic is math.
Yeah, how do you take numbers and make them into games and make them fun? And like, do you do it from the gut or do you use a calculator?
I don't know. So let's ask. They're on the show right now.
Let's get into it. So I'm going to start off jumping right to Matt. Because I love Matt's brain, and I love hearing his thoughts on things.
Not just for your body, Matt.
No, I don't love you just for your body.
You've been watching too much iZombie, I think.
Yeah, and so I got to go to you first. What's kind of your process when it comes to handling math in design? Do you first use your gut, or are you a spreadsheet guy, or does it just come intuitively and you just have strong math skills? Tell us a little bit about your approach.
Yeah, I think it's a bit intuitive at this point. But I've done a lot. I've spent a lot of time in spreadsheets, just seeing what numbers do, how they play. Looked into research percentages, odds calculations, cards drawn from deck, distribution, etc. So at this point, it's pretty intuitive, but it's because of all the other work that I've done. So.
Awesome.
So it's a process that has become more intuitive over time.
Yeah, exactly. The more you work with numbers, the more you're going to understand them. Math has always been pretty natural for me. This is easily my best and easiest subjects in school. But at this point, when it comes to game design, though, we don't use very, very complicated math. All you have to do is understand some basic probabilities. Distribution networks, matrices maybe, and it's like once I guess you can get into hypergeometric distribution, which is what people don't know that's always the question that people have. Like, well, if I've drawn 5 cards and there's 3 cards of this in the deck, what's my percentage chance to draw X?
Yeah.
If you don't know, it's called hypergeometric distribution. There's a function for it in Excel.
Very big word.
Yeah, it's a very big word. But there is a function in Excel you can do to play with hypergeometric distribution to actually give you that answer quite easily. And once you've played with it enough, you tend to have a feel for what it's going to be.
Great. Do you have a question for our friend Mr. Shalev?
A question? Yeah. How do you have any number sequence or any kind of certain numbers that you use when you put games together?
Yeah, I guess it's 4, 8, 15, 16, 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lucky
You
number
win.
out of a fortune cookie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have any like favorite sequence. I feel like I always want to use geometric scaling, just because it's cool. And that's like when you increment numbers by one more than the previous amount. So, if you did 1, then 3, then 6, then 10, then 15, that would be a geometric scale. So those are cool, but honestly, my brain doesn't work that way. I don't start with the numbers and then kind of figure out how to work them. I more often come up with a mechanism. It's terrible. I ask Matt how to fix it, and he says, well, maybe you should try this kind of distribution, and typically that works.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, it's more like a set of tools. You look in your toolkit and you say, why isn't the scoring working right? What do we need to do to it? Do we need to accelerate it, or do we need to degrade it, or why isn't the incentive for the behavior that or rather, how do we create the incentive for the behavior that we want? And often there is a mathematical pattern for that, but I kind of find it going backwards.
Right. So you're starting from an end result of what you want and then shaping the math to bring that out.
Yeah, I'd say that's true.
Okay, good. Matt, a lot of people might not know this, but you're quite a good Magic player, correct? Or were at one time when you were quite into that?
Collectible card games, but yeah.
In general,
Magic,
right?
Yeah, sure.
How has that helped you in terms of game design and mathematics? Is that a skill that people should spend time doing, is playing math-intensive games or games that play on probability and odds and things like that? Or design?
I mean, I think if you want to get into competitive design, sure. But if you want to stay where a lot of designers are really good, and probably something that I need work on myself is more focusing on the experience of the game. I don't, unless the experience that you're looking for is like a cutthroat competition, then playing that, there's a lot of time investment that you would need to put in to be able to get like the true deep lessons out of those things. I mean, I think of course you should play like a 2-player battle game just to get that experience, period, or a couple of them. But yeah, you definitely learn probabilities, what your outs are, playing to your outs, but all that is very competitive game theory.
Right.
So.
Great. Daryl.
Yeah, Isaac, jumping back to you. I mean, even just off of what Matt said, often some people design with a mechanic in mind or with a formula math. It sounds like you would probably be more, or actually, better yet, what do you start with? Like, what is your process of what questions you ask or what you're looking for early on with a design?
So when it comes to the question of what route I take through the design, it really depends on where it starts, and I am not one of those designers who always starts in the same place.
Nice.
So I sometimes am inspired by a story or a riddle or fairy tales, and those are some things that I've chosen as things that I'm interested in that I feel like have games in them, and typically when you start there, you need to find a game. There's a story, and you need to gamify it in some way. And that's not such a math thing. It's more like figuring out how you're going to change the story to inject the player into it and find the choices in it.
Sure.
But sometimes just a mechanism appears, or you're just playing with something, and you get a mechanism out of it, and you think, okay, well, right away you do need some math around that. You do need to figure out how it'll score or how to play out over a number of turns. Matt and I have been playing with a Mancala mechanism for hand management lately.
Sure.
So that's a kind of thing where you really need to figure out, if you're Mancalaing things across new hands, how are they going to fill?
Is that a word, Isaac?
To Mancala, yeah.
To Mancala is Mancala-ing.
Well, nobody actually. This is a true story. Mancala is in fact a verb, and what it means is to dig out small bowls and fill them with stones. And it's only later that became the Mancala game.
Dang! I hope you just made that up. But I
You
love
just balderdashed us
that you
completely.
just like boom, yeah, balderdashed him. But I love it.
Balderdashed a word?
So
Balderdashed the heck out of you.
that was beautiful. That was impressive. Isaac.
It also could be true. I don't know.
So an actual true story along that route is that I once told somebody, even though I had no idea that it was true, that the island that the Statue of Liberty is on is called Liberty Island. And he was like, no, it's not. It's Ellis Island. I was like, no, it's a different island. He's like, yeah, what's it called? I'm like, Liberty Island? And it was a total lie. I thought it was Ellis Island too, but it's true.
No, yeah, they're different islands. Ellis Island was where they actually had the boats come in.
Yeah. That's where the immigration happened.
All right, so Hack, you got a question for Matt?
Yeah, like how do you decide on like the amount of cards or dice or stuff that you have in a game, like math-wise, like distributing how many cards or how many cards per player or how many are start? You go with 108 cards or 52. Like how do you process that?
I decide how much I want to hate myself for cutting them out and how many iterations of the game I'm going to have to make to repeatedly cut these out and redesign and cut them out and redesign. No, I think the game tells you that, though. You can start with a constraint, a 54-card game, 108-card game. I mean, those are, I guess, pretty common printing numbers at this point that you try to stick to just for that purpose. And if you're going like 130, you're like, well, should I go to 108 or should I try to take it higher? If you're at like 70, you're like, well, unless you really need 70 cards, like the publisher's going to ask you, one of the first questions they're going to ask you when you're pitching probably is going to be, can this be 54 cards or can this be 60 cards for bridge size or something like that. So yeah, I mean, when you're doing that, when you're talking about distributions, though, now you're talking about like within those 54 cards, within those 108 cards, how often do you want something to happen? And that's a different question or a different answer for every game. So
yeah, I kind of come at it from a little bit of a different place. I think that a lot of...
You mean not sheer laziness?
Sheer laziness.
Oh, no, please. Most game design springs from laziness. No, but I try and think about the psychology of the player before I do the math. So I want to think about how many cards is a player going to have in their hand. We know that once you get past 7 or 8 cards, it's tough to manage them unless they group into sets, so you're not really thinking about 7 or 8 options. At the same time, if you're looking at less than 3 and the game starts feeling forced and starts feeling like it doesn't have choices. So once you establish what the use of the cards is going to be, is it your hand, is it something you use frequently or not, you can get a sense for how many cards should be available to the players, and then you kind of from there can get to a total count of how many cards you need in order to create variety, in order for the deck not to run out, or if you want the decks to run out, you want it to be really tight. That has to be because you want to generate some kind of feeling in the players, or because you want them to be able to count cards more easily, know more readily what might or might not be available. So I come at it first from the player experience, and then multiply out to figure out how many cards you actually need.
I love it. I love it.
Distribution. Sorry, I was gonna add to that. I was gonna say distribution in the game is actually is absolutely a player feel. I had a huge distribution change over and over and over again when doing Dragonflame, where it's like I just wasn't seeing enough of this, wasn't feeling enough of this while playing. Okay, cut some of that, put some of this in. Like the math always worked, and no matter what version I had. But it's like if I wasn't getting the feeling that I wanted, you take something out and put in something else. So
absolutely. I was just going to point out an example as well of the real practical. I had a game. It started to be a game for families and kids. Well, then hand size had to get smaller because literally kids can only hold so many cards. So then it actually evolved to a point where it was, wait, what would be even a better experience for kids? It actually evolved to being a bag builder instead of cards, because even just the physicality. So I mean, really thinking through the practical of the experience might affect things, but each stage, like you said, you're worrying about the math. You're still, having the math, but intuitively you're also trying to make sure players have a good experience. So
right.
Back to you, son.
That might lead into this next question. UX is something that a lot of people on the forums are talking about in terms of how do we get a better user experience or gamer experience when we're designing games. So Sir Bob asked this question off the feed. He said, what are the risks and rewards in using math-based game balance? So really getting into the math. Isaac, this is to you because you're not the one that uses this as much as Matt, perhaps, and so you end up having a more organic feel. What do you think the benefit of that is in terms of UX?
I think it's a giant disadvantage. Look, you can feel is great and it's important and you want to test that it's there, but without backing it up with real solid math, it's just anecdotal, right? And it doesn't represent every experience that players might have. Even if you're a really diligent designer, I was listening to Dominic Crapuchet talk about how many games of Evolution he's played, and he says he's played something like 500 games. And even if you've played 500 games, as soon as your game hits the market, if it's successful, it's going to be played tens or even hundreds of thousands of times. And the consistency of your design and the consistency of the player's experience is going to come out, and that's all about the math. So I definitely am concerned when I haven't been able to figure out how to approach an issue within the game without math. And I think that for me is the biggest challenge. Is there's some stuff I know what math to use, but there's other stuff, so like I made a worker placement game, and so you create some base set of values and conversions so that each action is worth a similar amount based on what rewards you're going to get for placing a worker and how that eventually converts to victory points. And players know how to do that too. They do that when they play the game. They try and kind of work their way backwards to that equation.
Yeah, valuation.
Right. Valuation is a huge part of it, but sometimes there's aspects to this that I don't even know how to approach the problem mathematically, and when that happens, I get nervous. And that's when I turn to fellow designers. That's when I turn to my dad, who is a PhD in math. So that's helpful in learning new tools for doing it.
Did we just lose?
I think we lost the sound. Yep.
Okay.
It's really polite to see how long everyone.
Some of us are Canadian.
Someone coming back here? He's talking strong.
Look at him go.
Yeah.
Keeping on talking. I don't know if he can hear us because
he's caught up. Can you?
There he goes.
Isaac?
No, he can't hear anybody.
Oh, you can't hear us either.
All right.
We can't hear you. Well,
all right.
On that note, while he works on that, I'm just going to jump actually back to Matt, and why don't he's gonna come back, but just to give a little context, you already mentioned Dragon Flame. Can you tell just people listening? Usually actually we do this first thing, and we didn't really do that.
I know the intro was terrible. Thanks.
Yeah, it was horrendous. we were a mess. So while we buy a little quick time, can you tell us quickly what games you've been involved with, and also what games you and Isaac have done together?
Yeah, I mean, so what I've been involved with prior to partnering with Isaac was Dragon Flame from Minion Games, came out last year, and since then, I mean, I do have another one that got signed, attempted to be kickstarted, failed that Kickstarter, and I don't actually know where that one's going right now, but that's Cosmic Kaboom. Yep, that is a copy of Dragon Flame.
That's my copy.
There you go.
Still play it. Quick and handy.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen to Cosmic Kaboom. I mean, that's another design that I got signed solo, but then everything past that has been Isaac and I. We just dove in, threw everything in together, went the con season last year, pitched everything together, and didn't kill each other. And
anyone who follows Meeple Syrup on social media, you would have seen both Isaac and Matt pop up multiple times as we would, pop in on the speed dating events and see them, or many a time, especially Origins, we played a bunch of their games.
Yeah, late at night. Playing Monster Truck.
The late night.
Monster Truck.
Yeah, Monster Truck, or Pirate Liars
Loot. That's going to be changing. Loot. That name is changing, but
that
game is still around.
So I mean, anyone knows we love a lot of your games and we like playing them. So yeah, we just want to make sure everyone who's new to the show would know what games. And I think Isaac, we're good now. Oh
Nope.
No, we are still not good.
You can hear us, so you get a good seat to watch the show. But
Oh no.
Is your mic even on?
well,
Yep,
you know what's exciting is now you can just head nod how well Matt is doing as a sales job.
Oh man, see, this is terrible. See, one of the things that
This
we
is
actually
his
do
nightmare.
together is he's the voice and I'm, the brains behind
You're
the
the face.
operation.
You're the good look.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of like me and Jay too, right? Jay is
Yeah.
really the salesman because he's really good at it, and then
Yeah.
I'm more of the behind-the-scenes, short Asian manservant kind of guy.
Yeah.
Manservant, I love it.
I'm missing that Asian, heritage.
Yeah.
We
Okay,
can
I
share another
can make you an honorary Asian. It's okay.
Oh, sweet. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, it'd be good.
I'm honorary Asian.
Yeah, you are
honorary.
Definitely an honorary Asian.
Wait,
Hey,
I'm feeling lack of Asian now.
you're kind of a lack of Asian. But hey, look at this. This is it's kind of leading into this. I'm going to show you guys this nice page right here. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Retreat to
look what's
Darkmoor.
funded.
It's funded, but Hack, look at that number there. How many backers they have? That's like
Lucky.
that's like
Lucky
the sign
fours.
of death. No. That is the unlucky four.
That's
Lucky four? Hey,
Yeah.
hey, come on.
The only way they could be unluckier if there were 4 of those 4s.
yeah.
That'd be horrendously unlucky.
Honestly, all of you would want 4 of those 4s.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't lie. It wouldn't be that bad.
All of us would take that.
But if we're talking math and numerology, that is a bad number for
Yeah,
the Asian folk.
Four is
Like
very
myself and Odd.
Mhm.
Anyways,
I'll
hey, Matt,
I'll
can you
take
tell
all
us?
the 4s.
Can you tell us a bit about this game? Because I've never actually played it.
Yeah.
I thought I played most.
You
of
ever
the
played
games.
Claw?
Oh, that's what it is.
Tooth and Claw, yeah.
I didn't know that's what it was. Oh, awesome. Okay, so
Yeah.
tell us about it.
So, Retreat to Darkmoor is a game where players are playing as Dark Overlords and they send out their minions to attack the main castle at Strike at the Capital City, and it just turns out that there were a bunch of heroes there that day. They were in town for a convention or something, and so they have to turn tail and run away. And so the game is kind of based around that old joke where, when you're being chased by a bear, you don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to outrun the slowest guy
Right.
in the party. Right, so you're going to be playing the minions to lines, to hordes that are trying to escape to different locations, and then when there are too many minions in a given horde, the hero is going to attack. He's going to defeat the last one in line, and the rest of them are going to be able to escape to safety. So the minions themselves have powers and abilities that allow you to maneuver everything around. It's a pretty pointy game where you're changing the order of things to make sure that your minions are going to make it to safety and your opponent's minions are not going to get defeated by the hero. So yeah.
Cool. Isaac, can you...
Yes.
Hey, we have Isaac back.
Hey, happy
Voice
days.
is back.
So,
He was feeling intimidated because Matt was doing such a good job.
yeah,
He
Matt,
wasn't.
your role was almost
Matt was
at risk.
realizing, why am I carrying this guy?
I know.
So,
I've actually been
Isaac,
studying algorithms just in case.
Yeah, you can start studying some math. Tell us about the math in this game. Is there math? Where is it? How did you work some of it out? What did you have problems with, and how did you balance it?
It's a good story, and probably I'm the wrong person to tell it, but the game started as a very, very, very different game. It started way back when it was about 3 billy goats. So that's the first bit of math, is the number 3, and that was the number of billy goats. And it was a trick-taking game. Well, sort of. The idea was that, in the story of the 3 billy goats, Gruff, each of the goats says to the troll, hey, don't eat me, my brother is bigger, he's more tasty and more delicious, and you should eat him. And the troll, of course, gets too greedy, and eventually the big Billy shows up and, knocks the troll off the bridge, and that's the end of that. So that was the concept of this trick-taking game, was that you had to follow with a larger card, but if you were the largest but not the big Billy, you'd be eaten. And so that was another bit of math where you had to follow with a larger card, and everyone had identical decks, and the game was stupid. And Matt said, well, probably you shouldn't have everyone have the same decks, maybe draw 7 out of 9. So that was another bit of math where it's a way of randomizing what people are playing, but very little, right? So you
is that some homage to like Star Trek? I'm just wondering.
No, well, this was meant to be a game that a parent might play with a child, or sort of an introduction to trick-taking games, and it totally failed as that. It didn't work well, and it was a bit of a disaster. And Matt said, maybe we should introduce some more spatial things going on here. So take the abstraction of trick-taking away, and let's make it more concrete and kind of create some ordering and sequencing, which is a different kind of math, right? A lot of what we're doing here is playing with a visual array and playing with adjacencies and so on, and those are kinds of maths that we don't calculate as much when we do game design, but they're a really important type of math to be aware of. So I think that's where some of the math of the game is. More traditionally, and I think Matt can speak to this better than I, is the math of how much cards are worth relative to their abilities, trying to create a balance between the victory point values of cards versus the power of their abilities.
Yeah, that is actually something where that CCG background, or just playing competitively, does have a huge impact in design, in just being able to judge and rank the relative power of an ability over another is going to help you in determining costs of what cards should cost if they're going to have a cost, determining what they're worth at the end of a game if they're going to have a VP value like they do in this game, and you can quickly determine, you're like, well, this card's really powerful, and then Retreat has an interesting mechanic, or an interesting balance system where it's like, well, this card's really powerful, so your opponent's going to want to kill it because it's got high victory points, but the ability's too good, so you want to give it low victory points, so you can't score it. And so you really have to strike a balance in there of like, how many VPs do I give it so your opponent just doesn't completely get to ignore it and actually still wants to defeat it, while still the ability isn't so good that you just play it because the ability is way better than any of the other VP cards in your hand. So, yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Hack, over to you.
Yeah, I have a question. Actually, this can be for both of you guys. The question, how is it working with Action Phase Games and working with a publisher for a Kickstarter? And yeah, I know Nick and Travis are also Magic players, so do you get along with them? And how is it working with them? I'd like to know how it is working with a publisher on it.
I'll answer your question with a question, as is the noble tradition of my people. Do you think that?
Also, eating at my people's restaurants on Christmas Day. Yeah, the noble tradition.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, assuming that Nick and Travis are listening, it's terrific. They're amazing.
They don't listen to our show.
Travis has been on the show a few times.
Yes,
it's not that he listens.
Yeah, not that he listens.
He doesn't even listen when he's on the show.
Travis kind of rants when he's on the show, right?
Yeah.
No, the truth is that Nick and Travis have been enormously responsive and available and passionate, and they really took the game, which they saw in a different format. They saw it when it was themed around dinosaurs. It was called Tooth and Claw. But they really saw through the mechanics and did a tremendous amount of work developing and fine-tuning. And a lot of the stuff that Matt was just talking about costing cards properly, was work that we did together, and kind of comparing different cards and saying, well, this card that has kind of a crappy ability, we've sort of scored right about here, at 4 points. So what about this card that has a somewhat better ability? They did a lot of that kind of tightening and polishing and consistency from card to card. They also pulled a bunch of stuff out, cards that we had in that they said, wait, there maybe is too much, a little too much complexity, a little too much confusion. I think we probably made the sin that many beginning designers make of throwing too many ideas into one game, and they really helped edit the game down so that it's pretty solid now. Yeah.
That's awesome. Very cool. Well, and I'm just going to actually jump back to Isaac on this one. Quick, also, we mentioned early on, and time's flying by, so I don't want to miss talking to you also about Ravenous River, a game that you had pitched a while ago, but now is out, and people can buy it. Yeah, there it is. I haven't got my copy yet because I haven't seen it at my local store. But could you tell people watching a little bit about the game, and then obviously tie it in with our theme and give us a little math story from it?
Sure. So, Ravenous River is a social deduction, hidden roles type of game. It's in AEG's 5 Minutes of Fun line. So soon you'll be seeing this instead of Love Letter everywhere.
That'd be great.
Totally replaced it.
Thank God.
Well, and this comes out of my riddle period. So I like to kind of give myself a framework for design. So choose stories or choose riddles or choose components, something to kind of get me started. And there's that riddle that even is in Retreat to Darkmoor, or that joke at least about running away from the bear. So this is about the riddle about the farmer who's got like the wolf and the sheep and the bag of corn that he needs to get across a river. Nobody understands why he needs to bring a wolf across a river, but nevertheless, they eat each other, and so this game is based on that idea of this chain of animals that will all eat each other, and they're trying to get across a river. So you're playing one of these animals in each round, and that's a hidden role that nobody knows who you are, and you're manipulating the animals whether they are going to stay on the near bank or whether they're going to claim one of 4 seats on boats. There are 2 boats with 2 seats each, and you've got action cards that allow you to manipulate where the animals are, and voting to determine whether the boats should sail as they're currently stocked or whether the round should continue and manipulate further. So there's really 2 bits of math that were pretty important to the game. The first was determining how many victory points would be required to end it. And the interesting bit of math here is that the way that you score in this game is you score a point for surviving, you score a point for crossing the river, and you score a point for each animal that you eat. But the way that happens is that if you eat an animal that's eaten an animal, you'll score more points. So if you're the fox and you eat the cat, that's a point. But if the cat already ate the mouse and then you eat the cat, it's 2 points.
It's like a turducken.
Exactly. Exactly.
Exactly what it's like.
So there was just some simple math of figuring out how many points is the maximum number of points that a player could score in a given round, and trying to ensure that the game end condition wouldn't allow for the game to end in just 1 round. So that really goes back to my approach of the player experience, right? You don't want to be in a situation where a game which should go 2, 3, 4 rounds ends in 1 round, 1 person wins, and everyone says, all right, what are we playing next? After this like 4-minute experience. So that was not a challenging piece of math to figure out, but it's the kind of thing that especially in race games where you're not race games, but sort of destination games where it ends at a certain place, you need to pay attention to it, and then of course you get the tiebreaker question. Let's say people are tied. What happens then? So in Ravenous River, because it's such a short game, the answer is you play another round.
Nice.
But what's cool about that is that someone who wasn't tied for the lead can still win in that following round. So
sneaky, pretty sneaky, sis. I like that.
Right. So some of that math and balancing and making sure that the total points available in any given round was suitable for that was a pretty important piece of math. There's more math in the game, but honestly, I think the more fun thing about this game is that for some reason the horse eats the hound.
All right.
Sure, that's kind of fun.
I like it.
Yeah. Hey, Matt.
Yes.
Speaking of math and it not being fun, how do we like hide math or simplify it in a game so that players have a better experience if they're afraid of math or don't want to play accounting the game, or Sentinels of the Multiverse, which kind of turns into that every now and then, right? Yeah. Those games where there's lots of additive stuff and some subtractive. How do we simplify it for people?
So that's a really good thing to do. Good question. It's also something that's really complicated to do, depending on like what you're trying to accomplish with your design. I think the best thing to do to simplify the math out is to make it so you're doing it in smaller chunks. If you think about really crunchy Euros, that you can score up to 300 points in, right? If you were trying to do all of that at the end, or even 80% of that at the end, and you're like, well, I scored 37 for this and 56 for this, 17 there, and 32 here. Like, those are some really big numbers, but if you think of those games, you're generally like, oh, I scored 5 points, I scored 7 points, I scored 8 points, and like we, as designers and even players like to call that point salad, but the real purpose of that is that you're not scoring huge chunks of math. And it's not really hiding it per se, but it's making it very, very easy, very, very manageable, and very bite-sized. If you are trying to literally hide and remove numbers, you can see if there's other correlations you can do. If there's, instead of having like values of 1s and 2s, if you can do symbols, and then do some set collection mechanics where you're still counting, but when you're counting a picture versus adding numbers, it doesn't seem like you're doing math as much, as I can attest to my 5-year-old learning how to add and subtract with pictures instead of actual numbers. So I think those are the two things that you should try to do if you're worried about it. Otherwise, just don't have a lot of modifiers. Change out, try to do something more interesting. Like if you feel like you're just doing a math of the game with a bunch of, +1, -1, divide by 2, multiplication. By the way, steer clear of multiplication and division whenever possible.
Mm-hmm.
You should always only try to do basic addition and subtraction, if at all possible. If you're doing, never divide, I don't think. I guess never is a strong word, but I would never be like, you don't want to hit a point where you're like 5 divided by 2. What do you do with the half? Round up, round down. Once you have people start rounding, like you just took your player base and like smashed it in half, like to nothing, on the people who actually want to play that game. So.
I have a question for Isaac. What do you do to give someone trailing in a game to catch up? Like, what can you add to a game to let people that's behind to jump ahead? And how do you think about that when you're designing a game?
Well, I live in America, where we don't give out points to people.
Yeah. Well, you also live in America, where you give up points to everybody who participated.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. There's a lot of approaches to how do you help people catch up. What are catch-up mechanisms like? Personally, I prefer, and maybe this remains political. I guess I take my answers out of the progressive tax code. I prefer I prefer to take the leader and make them work harder to get further ahead.
Oh, you Donald Trump.
God forbid. No, I prefer creating situations where the leader would normally have gotten 5 victory points for this, but now he only gets 3 victory points. That you start having that degrading scoring. That's one method that I like, because I feel like the leader still feels good about continuing to gain points and is still incentivized to do all the things that are good in the game. There's not really that perverse incentive of hanging out in second place, but at the same time, the folks behind can start seeing themselves catch up. So it's not artificial, oh, hey, just because you're last, now you get extra stuff, which I don't like that much. So that's my preferred approach to catch-up mechanisms. The other thing that I like, and probably drives Matt crazy, is I like big swings. Right? Just make it, if you're going to have some crazy effect in there, make it big. The expected value can be the same, just the variance should be larger. I feel like that adds excitement, that adds tension, and that if you're in front and you've been playing well, if you're going to lose because of a catch-up mechanism, it should be memorable.
That's so American of you.
It depends on the game.
I love
that.
It.
Is design dependent. But he did forget to say that the fourth thing that you can do for a catch-up mechanism is include a $5 gift card to Starbucks, so they can go grab some coffee because they've already lost.
Wow.
That could be an expensive game.
Games? Yeah. Is that a new action phase?
You heard it here first.
Nice.
There you go,
nice.
Travis.
So everyone, keep ordering games, people, for that reason. Nice. All right. Well, Matt, we are starting to run out of time, but I am curious. Just as someone who plays a lot of games as well, do you see certain designers that are using math or game theories well? And could you point to maybe an example or two where you were impressed or even a little jealous of how a designer implemented, something neat, some nice mechanics with math?
Sure. I mean, like the last design that I was actually, impressed by when it came to the math, and it wasn't directly obvious, and it was super clever, was Arboretum.
Nice.
Yeah, I really liked that game. That game was very, very clever. The other one that is like directly number and math related is Dead Drop.
Yeah, Jason Guitarski.
That game knocked my socks off the first time I played it, and it is so simple. And to me, it's like those simple, clever little just like.
And the funny thing is, I bet if you asked Jason, he'd say, "There's no math in that game."
I know, right? Yeah, no, the little clever things that you can do with numbers, ranging from 1 to 10, are awesome. And those are the two that I would have to point out. I mean, of course, there's really crunchy Euros that do a lot of things, and some, this thing over here and this thing over here. But that's more about action management than it really is about the numbers behind it. I mean, in those games it turns into points per action is what you end up calculating, right?
It's an efficiency engine.
It's an efficiency engine, not necessarily about what you're doing with the math, just how efficient you can be.
How efficient you can be.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to go to our last questions because it's about that time of night. So Isaac, my question to you is, sticking with the theme of math, what advice would you give to newbie designers, in regards to designing games and using math to do it?
For newbie designers specifically, I think the most valuable math that you can learn is probability. Conceptually, it's really important to understand probability. There's also a great calculator online called anydice.com, which you can use to do all kinds of different dice probabilities. There's a handful of functions in Excel that will help you work through dice, not just dice probabilities, many kinds of probabilities. Once you have those tools, you're going to find yourself applying them all over the place, and you're going to find yourself solving the problem that I know I had as a designer when I first got started, which is I know what I want to achieve and I don't know how. I know the feeling I want, I know how often I want this to come up, and I don't know if this mechanism does that. So probability is where I would point the amateur designer to first.
Nice. Good tools, good suggestions there. And Isaac, you got one for Matt?
I have a question for Matt?
No,
yeah, Matt.
That's awesome. That's hilarious. Hack.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Matt, do you have any ideas to use math in any future games? Is there any techniques that you want to try or that you've been thinking about that you might want to use?
I mean, yeah, math is going to be in every game, but I can't. There's nothing that's I'd have to look through all of our design. We use Slack. I'd have to see what we've been talking about in Slack for the last 2 months to see what I want to go into next.
Hyperbola, the game of dangerous curves. I can see.
Right. No, I mean I tend to get into those clever math things to solve problems, to make an interesting decision more than I have an equation and I really want to utilize it. I guess I'm not,
you're not sitting on a prisoner's dilemma or something like that and saying I want to make a game with that theory.
Yeah, but even prisoner's dilemma is more of a social thing. It's not. Sure. I mean, there is math in the game theory and what choice you should be taking, but but yeah, I mean, I did that. I did the whole I cut you choose. That was Dragonflame, right? I did start with a math problem there, I guess. Yeah, I don't look at it that way necessarily anymore. I think more in well, how am I going to scale this? How am I going to make it fair?
All math questions, really.
All math questions,
right?
Scale, fair. Yeah, but it doesn't seem like anything original. I'm probably a terrible person for that because anything that I think, and when it comes to math, I'm like, well, this just seems like common sense, and somebody's like, I don't get it at all. So.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank. I can't believe how fast the time flew by. But I want to thank both Isaac and Matt for being guests on our show this evening. I just want to thank Hack for being our third host tonight, and obviously thanking Sen for being a fellow co-host with me. Also want to give a shout out to David Tomei for helping with the audio. Just want to say thanks for our viewers as well. Thanks for taking the time, listening, watching, contributing questions. Keep sending us your ideas, your questions. Check out the after show. And even if you haven't seen some of our past episodes, please binge watch or binge listen on iTunes some previous episodes. While you're spending some of that math money that you have, you could go into Kickstarter. You might happen to stumble across a couple beautiful games. One might be Retreat to Darkmoor. You want to get your copy for that $5 Starbucks card. Don't do the math there. Spend more than $5. And then also while you're there, a little Glassface might be in order as well. So please check those out. Next week we have Chris Bryan from Bored with Life, and I can't remember who else's book. So surprise! Someone else. So until then, keep making great games. We look forward to playing your game soon. Ciao.